Minute left. Got 4:59.
You just can't ask them if they can hear you.
Yeah. Board members, it's 5 o'clock. Can you hear us okay in here?
I can
See a lot
hear
of
you.
nods. Good deal. Good. Let's keep our microphones muted, especially those who are traveling, until we enter into the conversation and for this important item tonight. Any questions before we get kicked off? Who was that?
That was their computer.
Ah, okay. It's 5 o'clock. It's time for the special call meeting of the Niagara Parish School Board for July 24, 2020. Mr. Eugene Garner, will you do the invocation?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Reva Phelps, will you do the Pledge of Allegiance for us? Thank you.
I ain't gonna ask you to rise for the ground. Okay, Father, we just come to you today. We ask you for your many blessings, Lord. Father, we ask you to bless these meetings, the decision we have made here tonight. Father, we ask you for a safe return when our students do go back to school and our faculty and Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, board members, thank y'all for attending today, this important meeting. Before we break into the agenda item, I'd like to ask Mr. Eloy to give us a quick rundown on August with his superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Benefield. Thank you, board members. I know there's a lot of questions that people want answered, and there's going to be a very robust meeting in August that will deal with virtual school. We'll deal with COVID-19 related board policies that have to be adopted. We'll deal with the updated Strong Start that now has the minimum guidance from the from Bessie. But I would ask that tonight that we focus on the issue of start date, and I encourage whether it be teachers, parents, students, or other stakeholders to access the website and go to our Strong Start tab if they have any questions. There's an FAQ up, to email us at townhall@nat.k12.la.us for our town hall that will be occurring on Tuesday, the 28th at 5 p.m. That town hall will be in reference to any questions you have related to COVID, related to Strong Start, related to anything to do with this next school year. So with that being said, again, I'd reference the website, the Facebook page, and all the information that's out there, and we will be talking in detail about all those items come August, but tonight we'd like to keep it specifically to the start of school.
Thank you, Mr. Eloy. At this time, I would like to entertain a motion to discuss and decide the start date for the Niagara Parish Schools for the 2021 school year proposed by Superintendent Eloy. Do I hear a motion to do that?
Really, we hadn't had a roll call yet. See you all here.
Mr. McTwire, thank you very much. We're a little bit ahead of ourselves. Ms. Revel. Thank you, Mr. McTwire. Can we have a roll call attendance vote? Attendance list.
Yes, sir. Mr. Danzy,
Yes.
Mr. McTwire.
Yes. We're here.
Okay, we're doing roll call. Mr. Benefield,
Here. Yeah.
Mr. Garner, Mr. Harris,
Another comment, again, thank all of the public for submitting these comments through our website. I can't think of a single benefit to starting school August 6th. And for every parent pulling their hair out over having their kids at home one more day, there will be dozens having sleepless nights and worrying about at work about their kids getting COVID. A delay would help overburden custodial staffs at every school catch up with all the new stuff that we need them to do and stay open safely, as well as our teachers prepare for all that's being thrown at them. Thank you for your consideration. Got a text that people can't hear the meeting. Okay. Ms. Corey, can you check that? We're having some comments come in that we can't hear the meeting. Okay, it's working now? Okay, thank you. Another comment, I believe it should start on the original date of August 6th. I do not think the kids should have to wear masks. There's no way these kids can keep up with a mask, and it will get so dirty that it'll be useless. Anyway, I don't believe they work anyway. The kids will be touching each other's masks. Masks will just be a ridiculous thing to attempt for these kids, especially on the buses. Let these kids do school as normal as possible. Yes, wash your hands, sanitize things. That should be done anyway. Another comment, there are too many unknowns about how to safely open school. A later date can give schools more time to plan and prepare for this unprecedented situation. Another comment. I got a comment from Mr. Bain, said it's a Zoom issue. It's actually a long letter. Dear board members, I'm a parent of 3 children in Natchitoches Parish School System. In anticipation of your vote this week to delay the reopening of school in the fall, I hope you will commit to online instruction only for the totality of the fall semester and announce that without additional delay so parents, teachers, community leaders can begin preparing for that reality now. With every passing day, we see the case counts in Louisiana increase exponentially despite closures, mask mandates, etc. This increase has occurred despite the fact that schools have been totally closed. We will likely be facing additional restrictions in the near future that will cause, at best, inconsistent openings and closings of school during the fall semester, and at worst, total closure. As much as we value social interaction for kids, consistency and routine are equally important values. Demographically, you govern a minority-majority school district. Our parish seat, the city of Natchitoches, is a minority-majority community. While research is ongoing, it has been widely reported that statistically speaking, the severe symptoms, manifestations of the virus affect minorities at a substantially higher rate. You also represent a rural community. Do you have the second page? I don't have that one. That's okay. A rural community with very limited healthcare capability in terms of ICU beds, ventilators, etc., to weather the storm of a potential COVID onslaught facilitated by the reopening of schools. These COVID realities, among others, along with a looming flu season, create a potential public health nightmare for Natchitoches Parish. Should you do anything but painfully be conservative in resuming person-to-person instruction. Committing to total online learning in the fall would allow teachers to focus their time and attention on delivering the best possible online instruction for students rather than diluting focus between online and offline. It would also allow teachers to be the professional educators they are and not the amateur nurses, epidemiologists, and that we're now asking them to hurriedly become over the next month as new COVID guidelines are implemented. The district would be afforded the entire fall semester to prepare for the safest and most well thought out resumption of personal instruction rather than rushing toward a September reopening only to have to close soon after. Time throughout the fall could be used for mandatory repetitive instruction for teachers, administrators, custodial staff, bus drivers on how to properly implement new COVID guidelines when students come back. The overwhelming response you got to the original online option for reopening in the fall would seem to be evidence that your constituents want this. Getting such a large plurality of the district to openly support online learning via registering for the program is pretty amazing. I would suspect that the registration numbers might even underestimate the actual support given the lack of the initial publicity. Difficulty find online, changing deadlines to register, lack of access to internet to some of in the community. I hope all of you will use this massive obstacle as a constructive opportunity to explore the creation of a permanent online K-12 virtual school in Natchitoches. Online learning is not going away. You see other districts like Caddo, St. Tammany, even before COVID, developing entire permanent virtual schools within their district. There would also seem to be cost savings that would be realized by the use of a virtual school and a hybrid school in brick and mortar versus brick and mortar. A virtual school would also seem to be a useful tool in combating problems such as overcrowding, teacher shortages, etc. You might be able to bring more students back to the public school or into Natchitoches public schools from outside the district if you see the Caddo model through a high-quality virtual school, and in doing so, increase funding levels for the district. Higher education is moving more and more online, and a virtual K-12 school would provide students with opportunity to better prepare for that reality. Thank you again for your thoughtful deliberation on this issue and your ongoing service to our community. Well thought out letter. And the last, how will pushing the school start back date affect the testing dates on the calendar? And we'll discuss that in a few minutes. Especially Niagara Central, end of course testing, LEAP assessment. They're usually done before the end of the term in December. And are those dates flexible? Those were the comments that we received online. And I want to thank the public again for submitting those comments. It's also helpful for all the board members to realize what our community is thinking. Okay, we have a motion on the board, on the table in a second to enter into discussions on this calendar. Do we hear any discussion?
Board, I'd like to, go ahead, Ms. Phelps.
Discussion on the calendar A or B, or the pushback of school? You said,
I think that's discussion in general about the pushback of school.
okay. He said calendar, so I'm thinking A or B, so go ahead.
So
No, I have a question. I
Go
don't
ahead.
know who can answer this, maybe Ms. Page, I don't know. How will if it's pushed back, how will the long-term subs be paid?
So long-term subs are paid based on the days they work. So all that would do is that would shift their, they would still work the same amount of time. It would just be shifted based on 2 more weeks at the end of school, or 3 more weeks at the end of school versus 3 weeks here. But I think what you're asking specifically is, would they
That
miss
30
the
days.
pay? So Ms. Page,
You know
can
that they have 30 days before their pay changes. How would that work? They still have to work if they still have to work 30 days and then it would change over in November? Yes, it will still be 30 days. Okay.
So I'd like to just give you some information, and this is also for public to hear as well. What we're talking about here is many districts have done this. I think there's around 15 to 20 districts who have pushed back in some form or fashion. Every district is deciding these things based on their own needs, their community, etc. When we look at our issues, yes, COVID-19 is obviously the crux of this issue. We have seen increased cases, and that's to Natchitoches, that's to Louisiana, that's to the United States. But that's not the whole picture of why we're wanting to push back school. Perhaps the numbers will get better if we push back 3 weeks. That's one part of it, of course. But the other part is we have a lot of items that we are trying to order. One of which is the cases for our iPads, so we can send these devices home with students for virtual school, and just to send devices home for students if they have a positive test or they're quarantined, etc. All those things for the protection of the device. These are on back order. We know that they're going to be coming to us later than what we originally anticipated. So that's one item. The other items are, we know we are still waiting to get our cameras for thermometer checks and our bottle fillers that are touchless into the schools. Not only are we waiting for them to arrive, but then we have to wait for them to be put in place. So we have those items, but the biggest issue is we very much feel that our teachers need more time to prepare in terms of the Google Classroom platform, and they also need time to prepare to get ready to have students and make them safe for COVID-19. There's a lot of anxiety in parents. There's a lot of anxiety with teachers. There's a lot of anxiety probably with even the students. And if we're going to call ourselves a district that puts students first and puts teachers first, we strongly feel that this is the manner at this current time that we can do that and not affect ourselves adversely. I know we got some questions about testing and things of that nature. The testing schedule is out, and that does put a 3-week, there's 3 less weeks to get prepared for testing. But what we've also done is we've taken away, in one of the calendars, we've taken away 2 breaks, so that 2 weeks actually is a lot less than we originally anticipated. The other thing is that we don't know if testing will stay where it's at right now. Bessie is going to consider at some point during the year pushing testing back. And there's also people who've talked about the idea that assessment in general might get addressed as far as the if it will even happen in the same manner this year. Those things are variables, but what we do know right now, we know for sure, and that's that people are scared, and people feel they need more time to prepare. And I feel as though one of my biggest jobs is to listen to teachers and listen to administrators, and they are telling me through a chorus of voices that they need more time to have that true strong start. We are a district that has never had one-to-one. That was a massive hurdle to overcome for this summer. That would have been by itself, without COVID, a massive hurdle. Then add to that, we have never engaged in Google Classroom. That would have been its own agenda item for one summer to get through, probably over a year to get all the training that teachers need. And we're trying to pack that into really a 40-day period once this became the platform that we knew we had to use because we were remaining in phase 2 or remaining in any phase for that matter. So we have these major hurdles to overcome that would have been major in any other school year. And then you compound the fact that we still have all the issues just related to COVID-19. And I just feel very strongly, and I'm willing to answer any questions that the board has or the community has, that I cannot see a reason why not to push back. I can think of numerous reasons to push back, but no reasons not to.
Before you leave, Mike, explain for those who are not up to date on why we're waiting on those things.
Yeah, so we ordered, as soon as we got our CARES Act money and were able to order these devices and these different items, we ordered them immediately, probably the first second that we had the money at our disposal. The problem is literally every district in every state around the United States and probably districts around the world were ordering these same items. And so when we initially clicked on it, it said, you'll have these items in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And now it says that you're waiting 8 to 12 weeks for these same items. So these are the same issues that many districts are facing, but many other districts were already one-to-one, so they're not having to rely on items coming in, or they already had Google Classroom as a platform that their teachers were comfortable with, so they didn't need the extra training. And so that's why we believe we're different. And Dr. Brumley gave us the ability in these plans to be different, because he said in his words to us that each community is going to need to respond to this in a way that addresses the needs of their community. And I think that's what we're doing right here. So would y'all like me to go into detail about the 2 calendars? Okay, so in calendar A, what we're looking at is we've done a few things. We've started teachers on August 24th as opposed to August 3rd. We've also given them 5 days of professional development at the front end of school instead of the 3 days, and we are going to advocate for that to be all at their schools so they can get their Google Classrooms ready, they can prepare all their COVID policies and logistics, and have time at their schools just to prepare and get comfortable in that situation. The students would arrive on August 31st. On that 31st, we would do what we're calling a soft start. The principals would have 1/5 of all students come in on virtual, and 1/5 of all students on face-to-face come in face-to-face on each one of those days. So Monday, you would have 1/5 of your virtual students online. You'd also have 1/5 of your face-to-face students in person. The reason for that is there are so many new things this year that they have to learn to do. How are you going to walk in the hallways? Well, it's going to be 6 feet apart, and it's going to be in certain directions, things of that nature. How do you utilize the Google Classroom platform effectively? So we feel like what we can do is we can meet with them in an orientation type setting and bring them in on that soft start, and then have September 8th, the day after Labor Day, as the first full start for virtual students and for our face-to-face students. The way we achieved that on calendar A is we took away the fall break that was in October. That was a full week. We also took away the Mardi Gras break in February. And we extended the school year to where the last day for students is the 1st of June, and the last day for teachers is the 2nd of June. The calendar B differs in one way. Calendar B, what that does is it gives back the October fall break in its entirety. And what that does is it extends the end of school till June 8th for students and June 9th for teachers. And as I told you, board members, the caveat to that extension is for 10-month employees that would have them continuing work until June 24th and returning back to work on July 20th, which is a much shorter break. So that's why we, in some ways, are leaning towards the A calendar. Although I will also tell you that what you could do, if you choose to choose either one of these calendars, is meet somewhere in the middle and do an adoption of a shorter fall break, maybe a Monday, Friday, or a Friday, Monday, and that would only extend the school year into June to June 3rd for students and June 4th for teachers. It's very straightforward. I'm able to answer any questions if anyone has them.
So we'll be starting school on the 31st.
Yes, sir.
So if the numbers is not down and all that, even the 31st with me, the way it's climbing, if something go on, we're not out of phase 2 or whatever, are we still going to start school, or are we going to extend it out further?
So my reason for extending the start is to get everything in place for the safe start. It's not due necessarily to the numbers. So what I would say is I feel as though, based on my philosophy of the start, that we would still start assuming the numbers were near or at the same level as they are now, or even a little higher. I think we're waiting to see in the next few weeks what the mask mandate is going to do for us. But I would still say that we would start at that point, because I truly believe that with the safety measures we have in place and with the virtual numbers where they're at right now, which is around 2,200, that we could have class sizes small enough, and we'd have the proper PPE in place and the thermometer scans and all those things that would allow us to start in a way that would mitigate risk as much as possible. It would not get rid of risk, but I think risk is something we're going to be living with for the foreseeable future. And we basically have to ask ourselves, are we going to start back at some point? And I think the resounding answer across Louisiana is that we have to start back in some way, and we can't wait for a vaccine or 6 months from now or a year from now even. So I would advocate that we would start no matter the COVID numbers, unless it was something dramatic that we all would agree upon. But I think what we're really talking about is being able to get all that stuff in place to protect the students despite the numbers.
And that's the information you know today.
Correct, as it is today. One thing I would say is that we're going to be flexible in our response no matter what. because we have to. Things with COVID are changing every minute of every day. And so we will be flexible. But at this moment, as of right now, I would say if the numbers were exactly the same as they are right now, we would still start school. And even if they were a little higher, I think we could still start school with the proper safeguards in place.
Dr. Eloy, but we're looking at, with our virtual setup, even if the numbers were high, we could do more in virtual to make sure that we can have a start, right?
Yes, I mean, right now we have 2,200 students who've chosen virtual. And just so everyone online can hear, virtual is still open. We are not going to close that until we have had a discussion, obviously, about this, but then also we're going to keep that up until July 29th because we want parents to have the most up-to-date data to be able to make their decision. And we've had principals calling parents and helping them to understand what virtual is, because we want people to choose that if that's right for their family. But we also recognize that virtual is going to be a very robust and rigorous situation for families. In some cases, it may be a more difficult scenario as far as instruction than being face-to-face, because any of us who have taken virtual classes, sometimes there's a little more difficulty involved in taking a virtual class. So we want people to exercise that option. You know, if it gets to 3,000 or 3,500 students, that's fine. We want people to be satisfied with that. We just want them to make the right decision for them. And if our numbers do get up to that level, then that does make the face-to-face all the more safer.
But I want to touch on what you said about, if the numbers are high, when we start back, when it gets close to September, yeah, we have to think about this. COVID is real. And I know y'all know people who have COVID, and people are dying. So we cannot afford to send our children back into the classroom at the riskiest place ever. I would rather have a child that doesn't know. I know face-to-face is great, but I'd rather have a child that knows a little less than a dead child. So we got to think about that. So if the numbers are high when it comes back to September, even now we need to really think about it. It's real. People are dying. Everybody in there, and us, we know somebody in our family that has COVID. And it's not the flu where you can just get over it in a few days or a week. No, you go into a hospital, and then you have people who do not have symptoms. So I don't care if the numbers are high, we got to really think about that, because we as a board and as a parent, we cannot be responsible for children who get sick. The school is the riskiest place ever. And I'm sorry, we can put the plans in place with PPE and the mask and check the temperatures and all that. We already know right now that's not sufficient enough.
Well, and I appreciate the passion, because I think the thing you said that is so true is that COVID is real and we have to respect it. I would respectfully diverge from your opinion when I say that I don't think that schools are the riskiest, because I think we are going to put plans in place that make things safe. But I will tell you this, everything we do right now in the era of COVID is risky. So I think your point is well taken. But I do believe that we have some measures in place. We have measures in place that other districts have as well. And I believe in our teachers as well, that we can protect students. But I do think what we're talking about is mitigation of risk, not elimination of risk.
I'm not talking about elimination. I am talking about, we have to be real about this. If we go ahead and do online learning now, and y'all brought it up, so I'm talking about it. If we do online learning starting in September, 100%, then we bypass the chance of when October comes and we're going into flu season in a month or so. So then if the numbers go up, when flu season comes in, then the kids will already be online already. And I'm not saying online through May. I'm just saying through fall. Just because if you think about it, it's the best bet, because they'll already be familiar with online learning. So if something comes up in October and the governor say, okay, schools are closed, now you got to send the kids home and they have to get adjusted to the online learning. I mean, they gonna have their tablets or Macs or whatever they're gonna have at school, but then they gotta come home and then get adjusted to that. And then that's where you're gonna lose out. So if we start off 100% now until January, then we won't have to worry about that because if the numbers go up, what's gonna happen?
So I'm not in disagreement with your concerns, Ms. Palmer.
I know.
What I would say to that is there's one specific issue that we have to be concerned about besides COVID. It's kind of 1A, 1B, is that there are currently at least 30% of our students do not have consistent internet access, and that's not going to be fixed overnight by the school board. And even if we were given millions of dollars, we can't fix that because we're talking about billions of dollars of infrastructure issues. And so when we say that we would do a virtual, what we are saying, and I don't think this is anyone's intention, is that students in poverty would be receiving a lesser version of education because of that full virtual model. And that's my biggest concern, because I cannot guarantee that they would have as robust of a situation simply because of their lack of connectivity. But everything you said, I think, are concerns we have to be mindful of.
Thank you for those comments, Ms. Palmer. Board members, anyone else?
I got a question on with the pay. All our hourly employees, all of them is drawing unemployment, or do we have some that we're not paying? Because if we send school out to the last August, that's throwing them a whole nother month that they're not going to they're not going to get paid. They won't get paid until the end of September. So that's my concern. I didn't have time to call the tax the payroll department to find out was all our employees was getting some kind of income from unemployment or what, because we need to address that. If we have some that's not drawing unemployment, for them to be off for a whole other month without pay, I think that would be, pretty tough on them.
Go ahead.
So I do want to, you're correct. I think one thing we have to be very specific about, though, is for most employees, this is going to be a 3-week difference, which I know doesn't make a ton of difference, but I want to draw the difference between the month and the 3 weeks. Most of the employees we've talked to who there was a separation, they have been contacting unemployment offices, and they do that through our HR department. And then some of them are, even getting that federal unemployment, which I know is going to be, they're talking about it running out at the end of the week. But they've actually, in many cases, people have been doing, I hate to say better, but in some cases that has been the case. They've been doing better with the separation because of the federal unemployment. So I think across the board, those who have been out of work because of the end of the school year have been accessing both federal and state unemployments, and would continue to access state unemployment during that time, during that 3-week interim period.
Yeah, that's what I just want to make sure that all of them get in, because I know they started later or whatever.
Yes, sir. I mean, we don't want to forget the people in this by any means.
I have one comment, if I may. Earlier today and yesterday, I had several people contact me about Plan A, Calendar B, and then can you hear? But anyway, just since this afternoon, I've already had 7 or 8 text messages coming in about Calendar A. So if we was to go into an emergency situation, Mr. Eloy, to where the governor stepped over, he would take control and shut the thing down anyway, regardless of what we decide tonight.
Correct. I believe if numbers were to get to the point where a decision would be made, I think that would be out of our hands. I think the governor would do like he did on March 13th and shut down schools. And in that case, we would be fully ready to go full virtual and then probably have a paper-based option as well for those students who opt in for that. But the problem is with paper-based, we're just being honest with everyone, even the most robust paper-based option is not close to virtual, and it's definitely not close to face-to-face. So, and that's what we're looking at here when we're talking about all these things is the best is face-to-face if everyone's can be healthy. That's the best. And I think everyone agrees with that. The second best is virtual, and virtual can be really, really good. And that's what we're trying to do here by extending the start of school is make it the best it can be. But paper-based, there's only so much you can do with that if you're not able to do any synchronous items with your students at all. It's all asynchronous, and it's all asynchronous without even daily feedback. So we're trying to balance that with also the massive issue of safety, and those are difficult issues to balance.
Even the logistics of getting the packets out, and so that's just another.
Correct.
And so there's a lot of things to consider. Ms. Palmer brought up a lot of those items. We may have virtual handed to us if we go back into phase one.
No, I put it on the agenda, so we'll discuss it on that in August.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I think that would be a very good conversation for us all to have.
This is my last question. With sports, I had a person ask me that if they are doing virtual, and are we going to allow them to play sports? Because what they was asking me, okay, the parents feel like the school is not safe enough to send their child at alone, but then they're going to send them to play sports, and they think sports would be worse than if you're in a classroom because you're going to be bumping and all that. That's why I think we had said something last month, but I couldn't remember with the sports, and that's what I was just wanting to have that answer.
Yes, sir. So that's on our FAQ right now. But to answer your question, LHSAA gave each district the ability to decide for themselves the question of can virtual students play sports. I have made the decision and sent that out to the principals that our virtual students can in fact play sports and participate in extracurricular activities. I do agree with you that there is some counterintuitive thought there of why would you want to be away from school but participate in sports. But what we want to do here is we want people to be comfortable with decisions, and there's so much variability to how everyone's making these decisions for their family, and from one family to the next, and even within families, there's discussion and disagreement on how to make these decisions. So we want to err on the side of the child and the family and say, yes, you can. And I think for the most part, that's going to be well received by the community because, people still want to play sports even if they don't necessarily want to have school in face to face. So.
Okay.
You heard essentially the same thing on the comments from the public. It's what's near and dear and what registers the most with that individual. LHSAA at one time said they were going to stop it, but then they turned around and said we are going to allow it to happen by the district. So it's going to be your decision. Will there be increase? We don't know. We do know that everything in school will be different. We do know that the amount of disinfecting and things that we're going to have to do is going to be at a level that we've never seen before. And so everything this fall will be different.
I do want to add one thing to this. About 2 weeks ago, I felt the mood shift amongst our teachers and our parents and our families in the parish, where it went from people were fine with that August start to I felt that shift after the mask mandate and the remaining in phase 2, where people just were not ready. And I tell everyone, I say my wife is going to be working in a school in this district. All 3 of my children will be going to a school in this district. I respect everyone's decision on what they do with their child and their family. But at the end of the day, I do believe we can keep our students safe, and that's why I'm sending my 3 children to the schools in this district. And I do believe, though, that we have to listen to our educators when they tell us we're not ready. And that's what I'm hearing from the teachers and the principals. And it's not we're not ready because we haven't been working, because they've been working much harder than they have at any other point in their careers, just because there's so much going on. But when you're working 16-hour days and you still feel like you need more time, I think we have to be empathetic and listen to those words, because they're genuine. And that's what we're hearing over and over. And I've heard over and over from parents, from students, and from teachers over the past 2 weeks.
Dr. Eloy, let me say this. As a school board, our job is to make sure that our teachers and administrators have all of the resources and the equipment that they need. You've said that there are certain things that's not here right now. And I think that we are derelict in our duties if we go ahead with an August 6th start when you all have already said there are certain things that's not here. So with that being said, I know my vote will be to extend. But now, the calendar A, calendar B, I was torn because I got just as many calls concerning calendar A. Most of the people in my district want calendar B. But when you said that we may be able to take A and then be able to still give them, I think that's the spring break, then, that's what I would recommend, so that everyone is satisfied, because I figured we might not could satisfy everybody, but I think with going in the middle, we are able to satisfy everybody. Not a long break, but a shorter break, but they still get a break, because I think they're going to need that.
Reverend Harris, you're talking about the fall of the spring, because right now it's a day-by-day ad. If you add a day, they go add a day in the back of the calendar.
No, I'm not talking about adding a day.
So are you talking about the spring adding, the fall adding a day, a couple of days? Or the spring?
I thought Dr. Eloy says.
So, yeah, if you look at the A calendar, we would start that September 8th, or August 31st, and then September 8th. You go all of September without a holiday, and then you go October without a holiday, and then you have full Thanksgiving, full Christmas, and then you still have a spring break. What we took away is originally you had a full week in October. What we could do, and I think this is what you're talking about, is we could add
that's what I was
a day or 2 days in there to kind of meet in the middle.
Right. That's what I was talking about. And that's a fall.
So we could call that calendar C if you would like. Calendar C could be the option of taking calendar A and adding.
Which weekend?
Right.
You could do Monday, Tuesday on the 5th. I'm sorry, yeah, the 9th and the 12th.
There would be more people interested in the 2nd and the 5th, because that's the opening day of squirrel season.
I'm open to all options there.
So, calendar A, can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Calendar A, I've looked at both, and I've gotten some feedback on it, and I apologize. I've been having so much technical difficulties again. Finally got in, but I've gotten some feedback, and most of the people that I've spoken to are in favor of calendar A, because it's closer to, the original school term, because I saw that in B, that some of the 10-month employees would have to come back and they really won't get a break. And I think that's totally unfair for them.
Yes, ma'am. And there is the ability for us to bring them in a little earlier right now. So possibly, but they have to do closeouts at the end of the year. So you're correct on that calendar A. With them having to close out the end of the year, it kind of keeps us to where we have to get them. we have to get them to stay for that time. And if you go back to a normal schedule, assuming COVID is gone at, next year, then it doesn't give them much of a summer break. You're correct.
Okay. And let me add something else. And I'm sure you probably have heard in regards to the participation in virtual. Can you tell me approximately how many numbers of students we got that have responded?
Yes, ma'am. We currently have 2,200 families who have chosen virtual for their students. Now, what we're doing is we're giving those lists weekly to principals, and they're calling those families. So those numbers in some cases have been reduced because the families have talked to the principal and said, okay, that doesn't work for me, or in some cases, oh yeah, that's exactly what we want. So we're probably around 2,000. The website is still live. I don't know if everyone's aware of that, but we anticipate this weekend after this board meeting probably getting more registrations for that. And we, again, are looking for a closure on that of July 29th.
Okay. And I met someone in down, I was in Orlando, I met a lady from Marksville. Several schools going down south, going in the southern area, or gone full virtual for the school year.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
something, and I don't know if we.
Well, Ms. Palmer spoke at it at length, and she has it on the agenda for next board meeting in early August. But the two districts you're referencing would be St. Landry and Opelousas. That they chose to go full virtual, and so did Orleans.
Okay. Thank you. We'll have further discussion then. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a few questions and comments. I had a question come through via text from an educator who wanted to know what will happen if teachers are exposed to COVID-19. Will they be procedure for that? Of course, they'll need to be quarantined for 14 days, but how does that affect all the children in their class?
So I would love to discuss that at the town hall. I can give you a very quick, brief answer because that's one of the major items we're going to cover in the town hall. But to answer it quickly, what in every situation is going to be different, because what we do is we contact the Office of Public Health. In the Office of Public Health, which we are Region 7 for that office, they will contact us, and based on the answers they get when they call the teacher and different stakeholders who were in that situation, whatever that situation is, they will dictate what happens next. So, for instance, if a teacher had their mask on the entire time and her entire class had their masks on, and a student it comes in for 30 minutes of class and starts displaying a fever and different things of that nature, and immediately goes to the quarantine room, and the entire time the student was isolated with the exception of maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and the student had their mask on and everyone else did, we're not speaking for Office of Public Health, but based on their advisement, the Office of Public Health would not say that anyone besides that student would need to be quarantined. Now, there would be situations, though, where that same situation, based on people's different behavior, perhaps they weren't wearing masks, perhaps they weren't socially distanced, perhaps it was a longer exposure, the Office of Public Health would then tell us the entire class goes home. But if we follow the directives given to us by CDC, Office of Public Health, and LDOE, we thoroughly believe if everyone does everything we're asking with fidelity, when a student tests positive or a teacher tests positive, and we also believe that positive testing will probably come from exposure out in the community, not in the school. If they test positive, then the likelihood of having to send large numbers home is very low. But that is all dependent upon our actions within the schools and how strictly, which we are encouraging and telling all of our principals and teachers to adhere strictly, but it's all going to come down to how strictly we adhere to that guidance. Does that? So there's not a cookie cutter answer. Totally. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Phillips.
But as long as I know we're working on a procedure for that, and it'll be available at the town hall like that.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. We have the procedure in place. They tell their principal. The principal tells Ms. Page. Ms. Page calls Office of Public Health. It's a very basic flow chart. But as far as what happens after it reaches public health, that's going to be determined by Office of Public Health.
Okay, perfect. Next thing, in regards to the two calendars, option A and option B, I think it's really an unfair assessment to say that option A dictates that 10-month employees will have to report earlier. That is assuming that we don't change the start date of the 21 to 22 school year.
Correct.
So there's always the possibility that we can move that date back if option B was chosen. So it's where it's either A or, you know what I'm saying, is
Yes,
a little
ma'am.
bit more involved in.
And I think, if you look at the rest of the nation, most states outside of the Southeast do an after Labor Day start anyways, really just, due to heat and tradition and things of that nature. So I don't think we'd be in a bad spot to push up to maybe a mid-August start date to mitigate some of those issues with calendar B.
Sure. Okay, and so the other thing, every single person that I've heard from, without fail, whether it's principal, educator, janitor, secretary, even students and parents, they all liked calendar B better. And if they couldn't have calendar B, they wanted some similarity to a fall break, whether it's a short fall break, small, whatever, but they all say they need a fall break. Like every person I talked to, 100%, hands down. No one that contacted me was in favor of calendar A at all. So I think we should take that in consideration too, possibly choosing a C option that includes that fall break. And the last thing I want to say is, could we possibly afford to buy another microphone where y'all don't have to pass that back and forth, you and Mr. Benefield?
We were going to take up a collection here in a little bit. Are you willing to?
I'm worried about the turns going back and forth with that microphone.
Yes, ma'am.
I
I'll do Mr. Kozad.
I have a question about the supplies, like the mask and all that. Is that going to be supplied by the school or with the CARES Act money, or will parents have to supply masks and sanitizers and all that kind of?
We have each school has a fund specifically for cleaning supplies and PPE. Also, GOSEP, the Office of Homeland Security, is providing one mask that is washable, a cloth mask for every student and employee. But we're also encouraging, staff and students to also have extra masks. But we also, each school will have disposable masks that in emergencies, so if one breaks or things of that nature. But those are being delivered or have been delivered. They were delivered this morning, and that's a mask, a cloth mask for every individual in the school system.
So the system is still open to donations from the public?
We never say no to people trying to help out.
Okay.
Superintendent Eloy.
Yes, ma'am.
My concern, and these are questions that have come up when you have children that have been home through this pandemic period, and they wear masks when they go out and about. And I know that myself and a lot of other people that have wear the mask, because it's never an unsafe for health reasons out in the public, it's difficult to keep it on, and I've tried all different kinds for a long period of time. How is this going to work with us expecting the children to keep the mask on all day long?
So,
and the other question is, and I know that we were not going to be asking the children that were the smaller children, the pre-K through the second grade, would not be required to wear masks. Is that correct?
Correct. And let me speak to the masks in general. I want everyone, whether it's board members or the community, to understand that masks are, that's being dictated to us by Bessie. Bessie passed a resolution called House Bill 59. In House Bill 59, it says that school districts will not be liable if someone gets COVID-19 in the district. But that's only if we adhere to the minimum guidance of Bessie. If we veer off from that minimum guidance, then it's going to be considered gross neglect, or I'm sorry, gross negligence. So what we are telling principals, teachers, et cetera, we know the mask situation is not going to be ideal. But any deviation from that, as far as employees, and not encouraging students to continue to keep their masks on, would be considered by the courts to be gross negligence. And so I do believe that we're going to have struggles, like every district will, about masking up, but I do believe wholeheartedly that it is something that we can get used to. I know we've gotten used to it in our office. And just to give some anecdotal data, I have a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. We have put masks on all of them. We have taken them out in the community, and they've been masked the entire time. And I have been very surprised by their ability to withstand the compulsion to pull the mask away. And that's a 4 and a 6-year-old who won't be wearing masks. And at the 9-year-old level, I think they will really surprise us how responsible they can be. But we don't want to make it a discipline issue. We want to give guidance, we want to encourage, and we want to constantly remind, but we don't want it to become a punitive issue. But we think that students will cooperate, and we think that for the most part, we can get them where they need to be in regards to the mask.
But that's why we really gotta think about it, y'all, because like, no disrespect, and you took your children out and y'all were out, but you got to think about, we got children that's going to be sitting in the classroom. They're going to be sitting 6 feet apart. I don't even know if y'all going to have partitions around them. Then y'all, we expect these kids to keep on a mask. Grown people, it's hard for them to keep on a mask. It's hard to breathe through those masks. So we got to think about those kids and the teachers and the judges trying to keep on a mask all day long, trying to breathe. And the teachers are trying to teach. It's no partitions. Then you have students that's not going to be able to talk to the other students. How they going to talk? How they going to do their caking instructions? How they going to do this? How they going to do that? That's why, y'all, we got to really think about how this is going to affect our school district. That's all I have to say right now.
Yes, ma'am.
And I concur with what Ms. Palmer just stated, because yes, we gotta be in compliance, and this is what the courts say. But the reality of it, what she just stated, it is very difficult. You going out and you able to take the mask off because you're not having to do social distancing, and the kids are complying because they're able to go out and take them off at different times. It's not all day, like she said. Sitting in the classroom, these kids are not accustomed to doing this every day. This is the real deal here. It's going to be virtually impossible because I have tried all different kinds of masks. They are uncomfortable to keep them on every day. The shields work very well. I wore one all day when I worked I'm a commissioner in charge at the voting precinct. Wore one all day, and that's the most comfortable way for us to that's something that we should consider. They're really not, they're more expensive than masks, but the mask is going to be different. We're talking about reality here.
Yes, ma'am. But unfortunately, the CDC does not allow the face shield to be a replacement for the mask, and so therefore it's not in that BSEE guidance. And so I don't disagree with anything you're saying. What I'm letting you know is that if we do any sort of deviation from that BSEE guidance, then we set ourselves up to be considered negligent in the courts.
Well, we're going to have a really difficult situation expecting these kids to keep those masks off.
Yes, ma'am. I agree with that.
It's going to be an instant.
I said, have a plan set up in the good, then that plan is going to be different.
Yes, ma'am. The only thing I can say to that is every district in the state is going to be dealing with that same thing, and it doesn't negate that.
We don't have to be like the other districts. We need to be safe. We need to really think about this. We don't have to be like everybody else. If we have the choice to go 100% online, let's do it. Let's do it for the safety of our children.
Well, I look forward to a spirited debate on that in August.
Question. Call for the question.
A or B? Any more comments on A or B or the hybrid C? If we do move into a C mode, what weekend would that Friday, Monday appear?
I would say mid-month, you know, I'm not sure how many people really need to go squirrel hunting that weekend. I'm just saying. But mid-month would be a good compromise.
I'm sorry, Ms. Phelps.
Just
I took you for a squirrel hunter. I'm sorry.
No, I'm skipping this year. But I do want to say, in the spirit of transparency, I did just get 2 text messages that preferred calendar A. And so I did want to be completely honest and transparent about that.
Well, based on everyone saying that they've kind of had people tell them A, they've had people tell them B, my suggestion would be that C. It would be the Friday, Monday situation. And if I were to offer something up, I would say Friday the 9th and Monday the 12th. Just because it's kind of in the middle there and it gets people through that middle of October and they can see the light at the end of the tunnel with Thanksgiving coming down.
Look, I'm gonna offer that motion for that. See,
We have a motion on the table, and a second. And, to allow for discussion.
okay,
Mr. Eloy has defined his recommendation for calendar C, which is, adding a day on the 9th and the 12th of October. Reverend Harris, does your motion, will that fit within your motion?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes, it will.
you second that
Yeah, I'll
motion.
second
Will
that.
that fit in your, that
Yes,
fits in
sir.
your second?
yes, sir.
Okay,
So what is calendar C is gonna do for the break and the janitors, the 10-month employees,
Well, what we would do there is they would still get out. If you look at, okay, so that would push us to a June 4th last day for teachers and a June 3rd last day for students, which would push you to the 18th for 10-month employees, June 18th.
Mhm.
For 10 months. And as Ms. Phelps said, we can just be mindful of that when we look at our calendar for the 21-22 school year.
Okay. So right now we're going to vote on A or B, right?
actually, it's changed, Ms. Phelps. It's somewhere in
Ms. Palmer.
between A and B.
Palmer.
I'm sorry, Ms. Palmer, I'm sorry.
So just to clarify, you take calendar A and you add the 9th and the 12th as holidays. And then you tack those on at the end of June, the 3rd and 4th for your end of school for students and teachers. That's all it does. You take A and you add 2 holidays and you add those in the end of June.
At the end of the year.
So they're getting Friday and Monday in October for a holiday.
Yes, ma'am. As opposed to nothing on calendar A and as opposed to a full week on calendar B.
And that does give them a small break that they've asked for in the fall. By doing that.
Okay.
Hey, board members, any other discussion on this item? Are we all clear that we're adding to calendar A, the 9th and 12th of October as days off? And we're adding those days to the very end of June, June calendar, which would be the 3rd and the 4th.
Yes, sir. Question.
It would change the end date, the last day of school. Is that what you?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, it would. In June of 2021, the last day for students would move to June 3rd.
Okay.
And the last day for teachers would be June 4th.
And the last day for 10-month employees would be June 18th.
That's right.
Sounds like a better deal.
Okay. Ms. Revels, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Before we vote, I'd like to get back clarity on the dates we're gonna be starting. That's the school, not with the actual date we're starting.
Yes, sir. So teachers would report back August 24th. and they would have 5 days of professional development at their schools. August 31st, that week of August 31st, principals would be contacting their students to tell them which day they would come to an orientation. And that would be split 1/5 on each day, 1/5 of the student body. That'd be a normal school day for them, but it'd be more of an orientation day for them to go through the motions of a typical school day. And then the full start would be September 8th.
Okay.
And including the professional development for the teachers. Would that be training involved for the COVID school
Yes, ma'am. It would be your
plan?
yes, ma'am. It would be your traditional items that you do at the beginning of the school year, no matter what, that the state requires and the federal government requires. But then it would also include a lot of work on COVID-related logistics and also Google Classroom-related instructional items.
Would that also include other employees?
Yes, ma'am.
Cafeteria workers, janitorial, bus
Yes.
drivers, all other employees, they would have that same training, COVID training.
Yes, ma'am. We are meeting with all
Okay.
those groups, if we haven't already, to explain all of these different items to them.
So, Ms. Page? Ms. Page?
Ms. Page has become our COVID czar, our czarina, and she's dealing with all those trainings. And doing an
Thank
excellent job.
Any additional questions?
No,
Mr. Danzy, do you have any questions? You've been noisy over there.
No, I was just waiting to vote.
Well, I think we're there. Ms. Revels, can we have a?
Oh, there was one other one. Who's you don't have somebody from the health department to I'm assuming it's already been trained by someone with the health department or cities, whoever does the training for the schools for COVID.
Yes, ma'am. We've been talking almost on a daily basis, if not multiple times a day, with the staff of Dr. Martha White with the Office of Public Health. And Ms. Page has a plethora of information that's come from them that we are able to pass on. And we've also been in contact with the hospitals here. And then also LDOE has 2 doctors from New Orleans who've also been advising us. That's Dr. Welch and Dr. Finger from Ochsner's, and they've been instrumental in helping us formulate all of our plans and responses to COVID.
And all that'll be covered, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, any more discussion?
no.
Ms. Revels, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Danzy,
Yes.
Mr.
No, we saying B. What are we saying A or B? What
We are voting
We're saying C.
on C, and you do not have C because C is an amendment to A. So if you take calendar A and then you add the 9th and 12th to it, and then that extends your school year till June 3rd and 4th, 3rd for students, 4th for teachers. That's what C is.
Okay, so we're voting on A, if we want A, which
Well-
is an amendment.
We're
Which
voting
is-
on adding 2 days in October, Ms. Palmer.
Does that make sense?
I know, I'm asking, are we voting for A? What are we voting for?
No, ma'am, yeah. Ms. Palmer, we've had the discussion on A, and
I heard the discussion.
we had a lot of discussion on B. And so what Superintendent Eloy has proposed is something in the middle. And instead of having a full fall break, which calendar B offers, or no fall break, which calendar A offers, he's asked us to consider for the weekend of 10 and 11 October, adding a day, Friday and Monday, which would be the 9th and 12th, and we are calling that calendar C.
Okay, but I thought we were supposed, okay, why, to make this just a little clear, I thought, why can't we just vote if we want A or B, or if you amended A, make A like C, and we just vote if we
That's
want A
what
or
we
B.
did. We amended both A and B and got a C. There was an amendment. And that's
I
what we
think
got
she
C
just
from.
wanted the motion restated, though. I think she just wanted the motion restated.
Okay.
Okay. Let's
We can do
restate
that.
that motion, please, you.
What do you want to call it?
Well, I thought Steve did add
He
the
did.
October to his motion, so it's already added to it.
He amended
She
it.
did say it again.
Let's reread the motion. Reverend Harris made a motion to approve the 2021 school calendar year. Our discussion, and seconded by Mr. Garner, our discussion led us to the point where we've decided as a group that 9 October and 12 October would be added to A. Reverend Harris amended his motion to a calendar C, which would be 2 days added to the calendar A, which is October 9th and 12th. And Mr. Garner agreed with that second. And
So-
that's the amended calendar.
Okay, so this calendar right here that we're about to vote on is not, it does not have the full week off.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay.
Ms. Rebels, you still with us?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, we're ready for a vote?
Yes, ma'am. Can you continue?
Yes, sir. Mr. Danzy, your vote is still yes?
It's still yes.
Okay. Mr. Matoir,
Yes.
Mr. Benefield,
Yes.
Mr. Garner,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Guidros, Mrs. Willis,
Yes.
Mrs. Broadway,
Yes.
Mrs. McGaskey, Mrs. McGaskey,
Yes.
Ms. Palmer,
No.
and Ms. Phelps.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Board members, at our meeting in August, Superintendent Eloy has a tremendous amount of information that he's going to cover with us. We will probably be doing it in virtual unless they roll it back. He'll send that information out in advance, and please address any questions to him prior to that. We'll try to get that information out as soon as we possibly can on the website, and that will allow the public to comment on it too.
Board members and community, I would also, when you talk to folks in the community and those listening and watching, please tune in Tuesday on our Facebook page. We're going to be doing that virtual town hall. We're getting a lot of comments in and questions. We want to be able to answer all those in the time allotted, but please encourage those who call you and reach out for questions to tune in for that, because it's meant to be an informational setting and to put some minds at ease with the information.
What time is the town hall meeting?
5 o'clock,
On
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And we'd like to go for an hour, but if the response is overwhelming, we will extend that if necessary.
Board members, Mr. McGuire, do we hear a motion to adjourn?
Well, can I ask one question?
Sure.
I would just like to ask that we get this information about the calendar and the start date out as soon as possible to as many sources as possible, the Journal, the Times, our website, our social media. So I know there have been a lot of people who've been waiting to get this information.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to be amending it in the office after this meeting, and I'll be sending that out to all parties tonight.
Thank you.
Good
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn by Reverend Harris, and second by Mr. McGuire. All in favor, roll call vote, Ms. Rebels. Any discussion?
Mr. Danzy,
Yes.
Mr. Matoire,
Yes.
Mr. Benefield,
Yes.
Mr. Garner,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Gedros, Mrs. Willis,
Yes.
Mrs. Broadway,
Yes.
Mrs. McGaskey, Mrs. McGaskey, Miss Palmer,
Yes.
Miss Palmer,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank
Meeting
you.
adjourned.
Thank you. We will see you in August. Again, please take a few minutes to make sure that we all attend that town hall to kind of get a flavor of what's being served. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.